Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello everyone and welcome along to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Hurling only this weekend and a couple of big ones to look forward to. Neil McManus is with myself and Rory to chat through them all. So let's start in Division 1A. We have got Limerick Galway, Clare Cork and Kilkenny Tipperary this weekend. And just to give people a lie of the land before it all, in the table, you've got Tipperary and Galway on 6, Cork are on 5, Kilkenny on 4, Limerick on 3, and Wexford and Clare both on 2 points ahead of the penultimate round, which it feels, Neil, like is moving direction one way or another for all the teams involved here.
It really is, Jacqui. I do not see a scenario where you could say you're safe in Division 1A unless you're on 6 points. I know that obviously Wexford are without a win. Clare only have 2 points. They've 2 games left to play. Can they get to 6 points is the big question there. But you will probably survive on 5 points, but I wouldn't like to be taking that chance.
I think if you were even on 6 points, right? And I've listened to a lot of teams saying we want to be in a league final. You know, you hear people like Dan Morrissey coming out and saying this is what we want. This is not what we want. It's even hard to gauge of the teams who even feel like they're chasing it at this stage. What is the outcome that they are most chasing at this point?
I think that I hear some counties talking about, getting to a league final. That's only really important for counties who have had a poor year previous to this. Now, I know that both probably Galway and Tipperary would like to be in a league final. They would like to have the opportunity to bring some silverware because they wouldn't be happy with their performance over the course of 2024. For your Kilkennys, for your Clares, for your Limericks, I don't think they're hugely interested in Clare as well. As I said earlier in the year, I don't think Clare, as long as they survive, will be too bothered about losing their opening couple of games. I don't think it will affect their season in any way, shape, or form. The Munster Championship is where they're going to get, really, really serious about things. Most teams are trying to unearth a couple of players using the league as they have done previously. But for some teams who maybe have suffered a little in 2024, they would like to be in a league final and they'd like to bring some silverware into their changing rooms because, as Liam Sheedy said, it never hurts.
Yeah, definitely not. I think particularly, Rory, even if you look at Limerick this weekend against Galway, after what happened against Clare, we know how much they chase national silverware every year. It feels like this is kind of go time for John Kiely to maybe turn up the dial a small bit and get a sense of where his team are and how much they actually want to be in a national final and see where they are at. Yeah,
I think what you'll probably see, we don't really know just yet because obviously the teams haven't been announced. That'll all come out, I would imagine, either tonight, tomorrow night. But it does seem to be the case. I heard someone else make mention of this, and I would definitely concur that when teams are meeting across the provinces, they tend to be a little bit more revealing in terms of how they set themselves up. Like, I think it was very instructive, for instance, last weekend that Cork played Clare and 11 of the starting All-Ireland final team took to the field. Cork played Kilkenny, and I think that's where it gets a little bit strange this weekend in that they're going to Ennis, knowing they're going to Ennis in 6 weeks, I think it is now from when the match is played. So there might be a little bit more of a shadow box going on this time. Now, Clare need the points. Pat probably feels they're safe-ish. They'll still have one game left. I think 5, I know, I agree with Neil. I think 6 definitely you want just to make sure you're safe, because it could get to the stage towards the back end of the competition where a lot of teams end up on 6 points and then you're looking at scoring averages. But I think this weekend, particularly in the Limerick-Galway fixture, given the fact that they're unlikely to meet in the championship until an All-Ireland semi-final, so you're looking at into June when next they'll meet in competitive hurling. And generally speaking, when these two come up against each other, there's there is a serious rivalry there going back to 2018, that All-Ireland final. They met obviously in the COVID semi-final, which was actually a really good game in many ways. It was probably the signalling of the end of that particular Galway team, and it might have brought Joe Canning's career that little bit closer to the finish line. But you have two teams on very different trajectories now. You have a Limerick team that are trying out new players, but still with so much experience to come back into the side, and Galway really trying to establish a new team, a new identity, and try and give lads the opportunity to, I suppose, stake a claim in the starting 15. Because I'd say there's lots of jerseys up for grabs, and there's no better place for Micheál Donoghue to find that out than on Saturday night in the Gaelic grounds.
I think he's found a lot about his team already, though,
Big
Neil.
time.
It seems to me like he's doing the work in the background. He has got names on some of those numbers, which I think he might be pleased with the progress he's already made.
Very much so. And quite like the point being made about Tipperary at this stage of the league, I think his spine is set. I think Micheál Donoghue will be fairly sure about 12, maybe even 13 of his starters. He'll be confident in the group that he has got in front of him, because the age profile is quite nice. Yes, he still has, some of the older guys, the Conor Whelan's, who's just exceptional. Love everything that he brings to the table, and he has brought in some fresh blood around him. Again, a problem area for Galway was the spine of the defence, and they've changed that a lot recently. I think Dahi is probably a little bit more at home at 4 or 2, because he loves to attack, and your fullback, even though he has, I think he might have 4 All-Stars in the full back line. They might have been in consecutive seasons even, because he likes to attack, because he likes to play out the field. I think playing in the corner, certainly starting in the corner, suits him. Now Gavin Lee at 6 as well, that allows Pádraig Mannion to play in his preferred wing half back position. There's a nicer balance to that. He also is getting a great kick off the bench every week, so I think he'll be one of the happier managers in Division 1 at the minute. I know that we've heard, Joe Canning say that he doesn't care about the league, but I think it was important for them to make a bit of a statement and have a strong start to the year. I think they'll be really looking forward to Saturday night, and I don't think John Kiely will change much. I think we'll see some new blood again this weekend that we've only seen during this league campaign, but there'll be a little bit more of the familiarity put back in again. I think we'll probably see Tom Morrissey back in again, and we'll maybe see a couple of others back as well, because look, the Munster Championship it's coming at pace now, and he'll want some sort of game time into his regular 15 to 18 players.
Yeah.
And Jacqui, just one other small point on Galway, which I do think maybe is worth a mention. Prezat and Roy are in the All-Ireland final. They knocked the fabled and mighty St. Kieran's, Jacqui's crew, St. Kieran's, Kilkenny, they beat them in the semi-final and beat them really comfortably. And the match was live on YouTube, so I watched it. Now, the game was over as a contest, long before it finished. But one thing that was remarkable, firstly, the quality of their hurling. It's just a given anyway, largely with Galway teams. But the size of them, it looked to me like it was a senior men's team against a sort of an underage team. I couldn't believe that these two teams were actually the same age. So they're producing more hurlers coming, and that's a big boost to make a final of that competition is a big boost to underage hurling right across the county. And the production line is in good hands in Galway.
It certainly looks like it. And look, in fairness, their senior team, Neil, as you rightly said, seems like it is finding its feet. You look at the way that they're finishing this league campaign, whether they make a league final or not. They've got Limerick this weekend. They've got Cork in the final round. And if you want to say that those are 2 of the 3 top teams in the country at the moment, I think if you're Micheál Donoghue, you're saying, right, let's have a look at what those people who we've identified that these are our starters, this is what we're going to get. We're not going to come up against them until much later in the championship. As Rory said, these cross-pollination games between the two provincial championships allow you the structure to have a look at your team. There probably isn't two better teams that he could line up against in the next few weeks before the start of that Leinster Championship, which is coming at us, as you guys have said, very, very quick and fast.
Well, absolutely. It's the perfect ground to go and challenge your maybe championship untested players, and they have performed really well, and I think they'll look forward to it. The other thing is they're going to get a challenge from Limerick here. They're going to get a strong challenge. Limerick are on 3 points. They need a win at some stage. We know they've got the delayed Kilkenny game to come at the end of the league, but like, Limerick are not just going to, let them come into the Gaelic grounds and take 2 points away. If they want them, they'll have to fight for them, and that's where you really find out where your team are at. But I've been very impressed with how Galway have done two things: fought for the ball. They've absolutely went after breaking ball. There's no two ways about it. Bit of a hallmark of his teams, actually. And then how they've transitioned into using it. We've seen, a lot of the ball come through Kiely at 11, whether he's stays there or not, I don't know, but I really like what I've seen from Galway, and it's amazing how a really good spine of a team can give confidence throughout the team. And like, Anthony Burns, these guys are just coming in, making a great difference because they have brilliant players all around them. And obviously Micheál has them set up very nicely, and he's given them great confidence. He's the man who delivered the All-Ireland title for them. And, whenever he walks into the changing room, I would say they're hanging off every word that he says.
Yeah, seems to be working for them. I think Tipperary have probably been on that same buzz, Rory. We've had that feel-good factor around Tipperary. They're coming back in this weekend against Kilkenny, coming off a bye week. They'll be fresh. The sight of getting to Nolan Park. I think this is the perfect test for them in a lot of the same ways that we've just talked about. What does Liam Cowell want from this team? What does he need to see at this stage to show us that Tipperary are the real deal?
Yeah, he's been they've been probably the story of the league so far. I suppose the only caveat that comes with it is we have seen Tipperary come out of the blocks really quickly before. We've seen Liam Cahill teams, because they put in serious amounts of work in the off season, and some of the other teams tend to play a little bit of catch up, and then when things start to even up a little bit and the other teams have their body of work done, ground hardens, Tip have maybe flattered to deceive a little bit come championship, but the team has kind of more or less taken a new shape. There has been a whole raft of personnel changes. There's been we know about some of the legends of the game from a Tipperary perspective that have now, stepped away in one shape or fashion, whether it was by choice or whether it was by force. I mean, Cahill Barrett, and we've seen a whole pile of players leave, but I think that's a good opportunity as well for younger fellas to really start to cement their way into senior intercounty hurling, and I think they probably had to. I think there's a friend of mine was at the match in Thurles a couple of weeks ago, and he was struck by how noisy, number one, the Tipperary crowd were, but how numerous they were, especially given how poorly supported they were in that Munster Championship match last year when the two teams met. And he kind of got a sense that there seems to be a little bit of a reconnection again with the support base, that there seems to be good momentum in behind them, that they have unearthed some excellent players. They've been going really well as well in the colleges competitions at underage. They'll always produce a certain stylish type of player. We know that. And what a test this week. I mean, I think I love this fixture. It's kind of, it's a real traditionalist type fixture. It's kind of like, it's one of those fixtures. It's like Liverpool Man United for me. It's the Tip Kilkenny is just, there's so much folklore and store attached to it, and Nolan Park would be a good place to be on Sunday.
I think for Tipperary as well, the reward is so significant, Neil, because there are some of these teams we've talked about. Do they want to be in a final? Do they not? I think Tipperary will want to be in a final. I think they'd want to get a national title, because I was reading something with Ronan Marger in the week, and you kind of forget they haven't played championship hurling in Croke Park since 2019.
Wow.
I was
Yeah,
thinking,
that's
oh
top
no, that
stat.
couldn't be right. And then I was thinking, oh wow, it is right because of,
Mm.
look, obviously COVID years, there was lots of other stuff in between, but like they have not been at the top table. So to get to feel that they could fight for a national title and to potentially beat Kilkenny along the way here in a league final, I think it's set up nicely for them to actually have a real go at this.
It's game of the weekend for me, Jacqui, and for the exact reasons that Rory outlined. Whenever you just see Tip v Kilkenny, you're just thinking,
Yeah.
ah, brilliant. You know, they spoiled it whenever, whenever they were coming up against each other regularly in those All Ireland finals. And I suppose, that Tip team who stopped Kilkenny's drive for five will be remembered as more than a team who just won an All Ireland. And like, it's funny you should mention Ronan Maher because I read a piece during the week whereby I'm paraphrasing, but essentially he said, we weren't showing how much it meant to be wearing the blue and gold of Tipperary last year, and we're doing it this year. And there seems to be an awful lot of emotion tied up in the performances. And as Rory rightly points out, that can be hard to bring every day, and does that effect wear off eventually come championship? I don't know. I think they're in a very, very good place. It's a big test for them to go to Nolan Park and win, but they will be relishing it. They will probably have been told, look, you don't have a Shamie Callan, you don't have a Bonner Maher. And then you've got Darren McCarthy just, walking in here and, scoring 1-5, nailing frees at important times in matches. And although that won't happen every day of the week whenever he's at this very, very young age, they've got their half forward line right. And that's the bit that I really like about them. Jake Morris seems to have really taken on a leadership role. Seems to be
Yeah.
doing a lot of on pitch directing. Then they're nice. They're nice and strong in a physical sense outside of him. With Alan Tynan and Grode O'Connor, they can both win a puck out, no problem at all. And then on top of that, what I like is Willie Connors playing that kind of deep role in midfield. He's very capable of using the ball in a smart fashion. And if you're an inside forward, what you want is the ball to your advantage. And I think that's the benefit that he's played there. As a forward, he knows what way he wants the ball delivered in, and he's kind of been allowed to drop back deep, receive the ball off halfbacks and deliver it. There's been an awful lot got right, but that point that Roy made at the very start, Liam Cahill's teams do work very, very hard in the off season. Maybe that's the wrong term to use there, but that can run out of road, and it will be really interesting to see how they hit the first two games of the Munster Championship.
Big time. Is that a bigger game this weekend, Rory, than a repeat of the All Ireland final
Yeah.
in Ennis?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, for me it is. Tip Kilkenny is bigger. There's just, I suppose, a little bit more tradition to it, and it's just two teams that have met in some of still the greatest All Ireland final that I've ever been to, which was the 2009 final. Actually, the 2010 final was remarkable, I suppose, for the reasons that it stopped a five in a row. But that '09 final, that was just, I mean, it was just incredible hurling. It just kind of took hurling to a whole new level. And so it's very difficult to say that Cork-Clare is a bigger game, given the fact the two of them met in such a blockbuster of an All-Ireland final last year, and it's almost doing both counties a disservice. But it's very hard to get a read on Cork versus Clare when they're meeting in the first round of the Munster Championship in the same venue in 6 weeks' time to definitively say one way or another, oh, this is how I can go, how this game is going to go on, this is how I see this panning out this weekend. The reality is this weekend we don't really know.
Yeah.
Until we see the teams actually, and I wouldn't even pay any attention to the teams that are announced until you see the teams that line up in advance of the referee throwing in the ball on Sunday. That's really then where you can go, okay, will this be a contest? Is there something real here? The funny thing from a Cork perspective is they've struggled with Clare in a big way for a while now. And it's almost like the shoe is on the other foot. Like my father, God rest him, he used to always say that Clare Cork used to sicken Clare back in his day in the 70s. They were famous for, Clare doing all the hurling and Cork nicking a late goal to just send them home absolutely sickened. And the shoe was kind of more or less transferred onto the other foot. Finally got around to watching last year's All-Ireland hurling final there a couple of weeks ago. It took a while, right? But we did. We sat down and look, the reality for me, and it was my sense on the day, Clare were the better side. I know the game finished in a draw in normal time and could have finished in a draw after extra time, bar, look, anyway. But I did feel in the course of the 70 minutes that Clare were the better side. They just seemed to find their scores easier. Cork's forwards did not fire on the day. I think the entire half forward line in the end were taken off. Some of the inside line were taken off. The Clare defence really got on top when it mattered. Shane O'Donnell was imperious. I mean, at his absolute peak. And look, we all know the situation there, and it's a terrible situation for him, and we would just wish him well in his recovery. And then if you go back to the round robin game that they met in the championship, look, Sean O'Donoghue was sent off fair early enough, and that does make things difficult. It's very, very difficult when you go down to 14 now to try and get a win. If a team wins with 14 players, then the opposition are at fault for not basically being able to take advantage of it because of the way teams can mine the ball in the modern game. So once Cork went down to 14, but again, I just thought Clare were better. And funnily enough, the big one for me where I felt Cork were the better side was actually in the round robin the year before up in Ennis, where Clare sickened Cork again with a last minute, I think it was Diarmuid Ryan. He had an absolute pearl of a shot from 100 million miles out from the wing on a windy day. And Clare won the match, and it obviously then meant that Cork's championship finished quite early because I think it was the one and only time that Cork didn't get out of the group stages and didn't make it out of Munster. And I think that more so than the 1 point defeat to Limerick was the result that cost them that season, even though they'd played really, really well. So there seems to be a sort of a mini rivalry. Mini might be the wrong word. There's always plenty on the line. There's always great crack. There's always great crack between Cork and Clare supporters. There'll be a big crowd travel up, as there always is. But very hard to say if it may just be a bit of a phony war this time round.
Yeah, it feels like that is. And probably, like you both have said, maybe Division 1A is a little bit that way. Division 1B is a whole other ball game, Neil, because when you look at your game with Antrim, with Laois this weekend, this is do or die now. Suddenly, you're in a situation where you're fighting for your lives in this division. And I would imagine, I know it's difficult when you're being involved, so tell us what you feel. You can tell us. But being in this situation, I'm sure is not where you thought you were going to be at the start of the season.
Well, you don't want to be in that situation, but that's what makes Division 1B so competitive because we've seen results that most people would have found incredibly surprising. Just thinking about Carlow's win over Waterford or Offaly beating Dublin and Croke Park. People would have been very surprised. Whereas most of the hurling people involved heavily in Division 1B would have been less surprised, put it like that. And for Antrim to be fighting for our lives against Laois on Sunday. We've been in that situation many times before over the last number of years, and it could be Carlow, it could be Antrim, it could be Westmeath. That's kind of been familiar enough territory. If I'm, to be totally honest with you, Jacqui, there are definite aspirations, obviously, for Antrim to be challenging the Offaly's and the Dublins of this world. But at the same time, wouldn't Laois, Westmeath, and Carlow have those exact same aspirations? They would, and probably on one-off occasions have done. And Antrim are very capable of doing it as well. But again, it sets it up for a great game because of the 2 up, 2 down. There's real jeopardy, and it looks, for all intents and purposes, if you lose on Sunday, you're gone. And I think the other side of things is now, Offaly are pretty much in the league final and going up into Division 1, but nobody else is just quite there with them now. You would think with Waterford's win over Dublin that they're certainly in the driving seat for that second spot. And, I don't think anybody really had Offaly picked as the team who were going up. Most people's choices were Waterford and Dublin combined in some combination of first and second there. So that's why Division 1B is so good now, and that's why ourselves and Antrim were so keen to be in there again next year.
Is there a gap between those teams that's as significant as it looks on paper? Because when I'm looking at your results, you lose to Dublin by 14, Offaly by 15, Waterford by 18. If you'd have asked hurling people, are ye 15 to 18 points worse off than these teams? I think a lot of people would have said no. But it's quite stark when it seems to be happening week on week against teams like this.
Yeah, I suppose that maybe the margin of defeat is what would surprise some people, and that even probably is something that in the early rounds of the league, whenever we are seeing big results like that, that would be something that people read into a lot whenever it's a team like Antrim who maybe seem to be four or five positions below the likes of Dublin, for example. But whenever that happens in Division 1, whenever, Cork win handy against Wexford, that's maybe not as big a conversation, or Cork win handy against Tip, for example. That's not as drilled into a factor. But whenever one of the teams at Antrim's level, at Carlo's level, at Laois's level are trying something out, they probably have a smaller pool of players to try it out with. So whenever it doesn't work out, you maybe get beat by 5 or 6 points more. And certainly not something that I'd be reading into hugely, because at the same time, just as Cork and Kilkenny will try things out in Division 1, like Antrim and Laois and the other teams at our level have to be able to try things out in certain games as well.
Yeah, look, absolutely fair. We will have a longer chat about Division 1B and the ramifications for everybody, but best of luck this weekend, because that is a huge game for you and everybody involved. By the way, is everybody going to be all right? Big bug wrapping the camp. Hopefully everybody's going to be fit to take the field, are they?
Yeah, hopefully. Look, these things happen and you just have to roll the punches. It reminded me, unfortunately, of our club final in 2016. We get ready, and it's a long season to win your county championship, never mind your province. Get to a club final, and Cushendall came down with a bug the week, St. Patrick's Day, or the couple of days before it. And it's one of those things that these things tend to happen at the worst time, but it wouldn't be worse if it was happening tomorrow. So, lots of lads are back on their feet come tomorrow and Saturday.
That's optimism for you. Hopefully it continues into the weekend. Neil, we'll leave it there. Thanks a million for being with us. Myself and Rory will be back on Monday to look back on the weekend. So wherever you're going, enjoy the matches, and don't forget to like and follow wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to you next week.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it.